Bonnie, are we ready to start? Bonnie, is the recording on?
The lights on.
Is Larry still out? Is Larry still out?
Okay, I call this March 8th meeting of the York County Planning Commission to order. Are there any changes to the agenda? Do we have a vote to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve?
All right, all in favor of approving the agenda? Okay, that looks unanimous. The minutes, are there any questions or comments on the minutes from last month? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
All in favor? And I'm sorry, we have a new commissioner. Greg, if you would introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Greg Simmons.
Oh, can you push the button that turns on your mic?
There we go. Hi, my name is Greg Simmons, almost a lifelong resident of York County. I live basically equidistant between Rock Hill and York.
Excellent. Thank you for joining. All right. On to new business, the public hearing to review the road name request. Do we have a motion to open the public hearing?
I make a motion to open.
All in favor of opening the public hearing? Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Tina Harmer, addressing manager for 911. This public hearing is to request the renaming of a segment of Quarry Road located off of Highway 161 in York, with 2 cul-de-sacs added to Metrolina's property. The new road name approved is St. James Church Road. This is a map of the location. The portion that will be renamed is the northeastern, the top. That will become St. James Church Road. The bottom will remain Quarry Road at the bottom. And this is another map showing where the cul-de-sacs will be on the property. That's pretty much it. Any questions?
I appreciate that you went to all the adjacent landowners, not you, but the requester, because that has been a huge issue in the past, and it looks like they all agreed on the same name, which is very helpful. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further, do I need to open it for public comment?
Oh, correct.
Is there anybody here to comment on the road name change? Then do we have a motion to close the public hearing? Do that before the vote.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
All right, all in favor of closing the public hearing? All right, and then a motion to approve the road name change.
Correct.
Okay, so that was Matt, and then
I had the second.
you seconded. All right, all in favor? All right, thank you. On to item 2, variances from sections 145065 and 154, oh, it says 065 again. Do we have a motion to open the public hearing on the variance, or do we need the report first? I beg your pardon? Open it now. Okay. Perfect. So do we have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the public hearing.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Go ahead, thank you.
I'm Marion Ray, zoning planner for York County. The variance you have before you tonight is from the subdivision code. It is for a Colston Enterprises project, and the applicant is Barry Fay. So this is the parcels that we are talking about tonight. You'll see it's along Pikeview Road here. Across the street is the intersection for Mark Trail, and it's north of Regent Parkway. There is another townhome subdivision just to the south there. That's Pikeview Place. This subdivision is extending from Pikeview Place along Tayberry Lane, which you can see there at the top of the plat. And the Tayberry Lane is required to end in an 80-foot cul-de-sac per code. The request for variance is to vary that. And if they get this irregular sized cul-de-sac with the stub out, they would also need a variance from the private streets ordinance because it no longer meets the private streets that have to be inspected the same as public streets. So it's a townhome community. It's going to comprise of about 81 townhome units, and that is the maximum density required by code. It does have about 2 acres of open space, which includes the buffer yards and a tree save. So this is the summary of what they're requesting. Again, it's the private streets and cul-de-sac parts of the subdivision code. I've got it highlighted here. You can see the cul-de-sac is circled in red. The buffer area that is intruding into is there highlighted in green. And the analysis is that it is required to end in an 80-foot cul-de-sac. It's a permanent cul-de-sac, and it should not be in the 50-foot buffer. And then because of the change of that, you have to have the private road variance. So I've added findings to everything. You know, it's a little bit of a change. So variance may be granted wherever physical features of the area, including grades, rocks, ledges, specimen trees, or other important natural features should be preserved. In these cases, the Planning Commission may approve alternate locations, buffer widths, path widths, pavement, or path types. So the findings and staff recommendations, based on the current layout of the property and the topography, an 80-foot cul-de-sac would not be impeded by the topography or other important natural features. Therefore, staff recommends denial based on lack of physical features or other obstructions to impede an 80-foot cul-de-sac as required by York County Subdivision Code. Do we have any questions?
Yes. Does the existing development that they're connecting into not have that same configuration?
They do have that. They did have that same configuration, yes.
Okay, so what's different from then to now?
Code reviewing.
If I could add to that as well. When the first one came through for Pikeview Towns, the intention was to be able to continue on for this access point, and therefore they were allowed to do that kind of connection because it was going to continue on. So you're talking about the one on Pikeview?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So could this not continue to?
No, the next parcel over is less than 3 acres and is already developed a single-family house and probably would not be developed anything further. So when this was developed for Pikeview, this property here was much larger, so it was anticipated to go ahead and develop. The next parcel on probably will not develop in the same manner. Therefore, there wouldn't be a allowance to be able to have that connection to go through.
Do we have any further questions of staff?
Are there any other streets in the vicinity that don't have a cul-de-sac at the end?
No, sir. The subdivision directly adjacent to the west is single family, and they do have cul-de-sacs, but they were at the end of their available areas. So they didn't have a chance to interconnect with other roads at that point. So there is single family, but the only interconnectivity this property would have would be to the townhomes to the south.
So there's no other townhome developments in the Regent Park area that have dead-end streets?
There are, yes.
There are.
Yes, across the street from across Pikeview. There are several back in there that are, they have 60 to 80 foot cul-de-sacs permanently ending against property lines.
Okay, so what is the difference between those situations and?
This one does not have, like the ones across the street, they were not going to develop further. So they have 60 to 80 foot cul-de-sacs, whereas this one is probably not going to develop further north due to the size of that lot. So it needs to have a standard cul-de-sac.
Okay, so if the other ones have 60-foot cul-de-sacs and those are?
60 to 80. I haven't done the measurements for all of them, but I do know some of them were intended to be temporary, but that would have been probably about 20 years ago when they started doing those.
Do we have any further questions of staff?
I have a question I don't know if staff can answer it, but is the variance really just so that more townhomes can be built, or is there a secondary reason?
You would have to ask the
Developer.
applicant.
Okay.
Well, based on the findings, it looks like they could put in an 80-foot. It's not being impeded by, any of the natural features. They just
Right.
chose not to on this particular one.
Right.
Okay. Do we have any members of the public who are here to speak regarding the variance? Okay. If you could step up, state your name and address for the record, and then keep your comments, this is only regarding the variance.
I'm Earl Coulson, I'm the owner of the property. And she was not correct, because on some of the stuff she done, on it, Region Park in 1919 and 1920, year and a half ago, I just built 120 townhomes on Region Parkway, and I got 5 streets exactly like that does not have a cul-de-sac, and it was proved by the same people that's got this one. The only thing they made us do, keep it less than 149 feet for the fire department. The fire department signed off on, they wouldn't sign off on 150 feet, but had 149 for the fire trucks to back in there to do it. So this is, shocked me to have got it, and if you put the cul-de-sac in there, that whole building, I'd need to move the street where we tie, I'll let the engineer talk to you about it. But the street needs to be moved away, because that whole building's going away, the whole 5 units, because 80 feet, if you move it back, it's gonna affect about 6 townhomes. And you don't need it. If you take that one building out, you don't need the street. If you look at it, where it comes down, entrance there, if you do away that building to the right when you're driving in, you have to do away with that building to build a cul-de-sac there. Then if you build a cul-de-sac there, you don't need it because the building ain't there. The only reason that building, cul-de-sac would serve would be that one building. And the lady lives next door, the 3 acres over there. I tried to buy it from her, and her family was selling it, but she's 93 years old. 93 years old, and she said she didn't need the money right now. Husband built that house 20 years for her. And I was just gonna buy an acre off of it to where I could just put the cul-de-sac in it and leave the rest of it undisturbed. But she said, her family said she was 93 and she just didn't really want to be bothered with it right now. She didn't need the money. So that 3 acres could be very valuable to this continuation if we could get it. Because 3 acres, you could end up with another 20 units, townhomes there, according to your code.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. You have questions?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Is there, thank you very much.
Ma'am.
I think that was it.
Yep.
Thank you. Are there other members of the public who wish to speak towards just the variance?
Hello, my name is Barry Fay. I'm the applicant. I'm also the engineer for this preliminary plat. One thing I would like to mention is the location of the tie-in road for this development is that there's an existing intersection, and so we are required to connect at that point. Making that connection and bringing the road into the property, and also making a connection to the existing Tayberry Lane, limits us in how we can make that a cul-de-sac in that location work with relation to the required buffer. Also, I'm not quite certain that connectivity to the adjacent property is necessarily a detriment. I'm sure somebody could find something to develop there that would prefer to have a secondary connection and limit that much traffic onto Pikeview at another connection point. Other than that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak to the variance? Okay. With that, are there any other questions for staff?
I have a follow-up question for staff. So there seems, I'm assuming maybe the stuff built on Regent was city versus the county. Do we know what we're talking, what's the disconnect between,
It's all county.
it's all county?
Yeah, it's all county.
So,
Why were the previous ones different?
yes.
I can't speak to that.
Is there anybody that can speak to that?
So
Go ahead.
now, I guess what my question is, so what the gentleman is saying is true, that it was approved historically different than what's being proposed now? I'm just trying to make sure that I'm following which.
I'm not sure if he's referring to a property on Regent Parkway. I'm guessing what he's talking about. I'm not sure what he's talking about, so which development do you think he's talking about?
Thank you.
Marion, do you know? I don't know which one he's talking about.
Can you clarify which property you're talking about?
Back Linwood Bars on Regent Parkway. It's off of,
Okay, that's what I thought he was talking about.
It really comes off Convention Drive. And
There are some stub outs there that don't have a cul-de-sac. It could be because it's zone PD, and therefore they have different requirements. It could be previous reviewers didn't see it, but this is the code as it is appropriately applied to this location here.
Same people reviewed it, and I don't know if a PD requires any difference in the roads. I've been out there at Regent Park 30 years. And this is first thing, that's popped up completely off the chart. They blamed it on the PD, and I said it all up and asked people. The PD does not specify you can leave off cul-de-sacs or nothing. The roads, they built according to county standards, what my plan was approved over there.
Thank you.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
So do we have a motion? Oh, thank you. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
And do we have a second? All right, all in favor? Okay, then do we have a motion on the variance?
I move to follow staff's recommendation and deny the variance based on code.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Bonnie, I'm not sure, that was Antonio. He didn't, oh, your mic, for some reason, it showed that it was off, and now it's back on. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor of the denial? Okay, all opposed? Okay. On to item 3, Ashdowns
I think
Townhomes.
we got that wrong. Who I oppose the denial.
Correct, and we all,
Okay.
yeah, so we approved the opposition, yeah.
Okay, let's make sure.
I'm not sure. Were you clear on the vote? I see you counting.
Yeah,
I think it was 3. I'm sorry.
I had 2.
All in favor for the denial of the variance?
Deny the variance. 6-2.
Okay, thank you.
Our next item is the preliminary plat for Ashdowns, which we just talked about in the previous one. This one is, we can approve the preliminary plat if we put a condition on the approval that, let me read it off here. That staff recommends the preliminary plat be approved with the condition that the revised preliminary plat be resubmitted and it meets all requirements set forth in the code and address any outstanding comments by staff. This is a townhome development. It has hit its maximum density with 81 units over 10.94 acres. It is consistent with RD2 zoning and consistent with the comprehensive plan of neighborhood residential. The minimum lot width, or minimum average lot width, is 1,722 square feet, and the minimum lot width is 21 feet. It contains 2.06 acres of open space, which is in excess of the required open space of 2.03. It does have interconnectivity with the neighboring townhome development with sidewalks and street, and then it also has sidewalks along Pikeview connecting to the other development there. Do we have any questions for staff?
If there are no questions, do we have a motion?
I'll motion to approve as presented.
As requested by staff?
Second.
With the condition?
With the conditions?
Yes.
With the
as-
condition.
With the
Second with the
condition
condition.
as,
With the condition that the revised plat be resubmitted and meet all requirements set forth in the code and address any outstanding comments by staff.
Okay.
thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay, the next one is the revision to the peninsula at Lake Wiley, and I believe our new member needs to recuse himself on this one.
Had to go get my other staff report. All right. This one is Peninsula at Lake Wiley. It was also known as Concord previously. The property is owned by Duke Energy, and Eddie Moore with the John R. McAdams Company is the applicant. This property is zoned RD2, and it is consistent with RD2 zoning. It is also consistent with the comprehensive plan for rural residential. It has 348.42 acres within it. The project proposes 155 single-family residential lots. This is a reduction from the previously approved 161 lots. The density is 0.44 dwellings per acre, which is also a reduction from the previously approved 0.46 units per acre, which does exceed the minimum, or meets the minimum requirements. Let's see if there was another little detail here. It looks like it's pretty straightforward. The one part they are trying to requesting a change from is the previous approval had a condition on it for the no septic lines serving a septic system will be permitted to encroach into any public rights of way or cross public rights of way. Moreover, any and all lines used for the functioning of any septic system are not to encroach in any way into a public right of way, including crossing a roadway. So this project has shared drainage fields. So the homes on these lots would either have their own septic systems, and if that was not going to work for that lot, they would all share a shared drainage field. Different sections would have different shared drainage fields, which means you would have force mains moving the sewer systems into these shared fields. I have a close-up here of one of the proposed lines. I've circled it. It goes through the tree save area to the lighter gray shared drain field to the right there. And for the findings, it's going to be served by private wells and private or shared septic systems. If they currently exceed the common open space requirements, if they have to use less drain fields, they will have additional open space above the required. So the lots do have to have their DHEC permits for the individual lots, or they will share and have their proof of connectivity for the shared drainage. It does require comply with density. A TIA was completed and it is still valid. And mitigation was not required for that TIA. And they do have, no sidewalks are required for this low density style of development. And they do have, this is the open space, they have an excess of their 69.8, which may increase also. And they also have the 50-foot Wiley buffer included. So staff recommends approval with the following conditions. The first condition is very familiar. It's the same one that was put on the project the first time. No septic lines serving a septic system will be permitted to encroach into any public rights of way or cross public rights of way. Moreover, any and all lines used for the functioning of any septic system are not to encroach in any way into a public right of way, including crossing a roadway. In addition, we've added a second recommendation. No septic lines serving a septic system will be permitted to encroach into any tree save or common open space areas. We have any questions for staff?
So your second comment does that eliminate community?
No, they would have to go around tree save and common open space areas.
So this is in addition, so they have the required tree save, the required open space, and then this additional area set aside for the drain fields.
Yes. The drain fields were not allowed to be counted as common open space.
Okay.
Yeah, originally, when this was approved last February, they had said only 61 lots would be served by a shared septic.
Right.
That's no longer in there, so it could be any, all, okay.
Yes.
Okay. I know we have at least 3 new members who weren't here when this was initially approved. So just for some of the history, the reason that first item was put in there was if the private septic system were to cross a roadway or encroach in the right-of-way and have any failures, it's a county road. So now the county is responsible for going in, digging up the road, repairing the road. And one of the other concerns was with that many shared systems, you have much longer lines, more pump stations, more potential to fail and have sewage spill into the lake, were some of the concerns, just so you know why we included those restrictions in the approval. Do we have any questions for staff?
So I think Jamie just asked this question, but when we discussed this earlier, one of the main points that we discussed was the fact that the houses would be, the number of houses would be somewhat minimal, compared to the whole subdivision. That is changed?
It would be a good question for the applicant. Right now, it appears that there is question on whether or not the different lots will perk. So they're requesting some flexibility on how many they would be able to move to the drainage fields versus. Yeah. So they've set it up so that they have the open space regardless.
Do we have any further questions?
Can the applicant step up here and answer a couple questions?
If you could state your name and address for the record, sir?
Good evening, Madam Chair, Planning Commission members. My name is Eddie Moore with McAdams, 3430 Torrington Way, Suite 110 in Charlotte. I am here representing and assisting Premier Land with this preliminary plat. The request this evening is, we're not requesting a variance like the previous item that was before you. We are simply requesting to rescind the condition that was imposed by the Planning Commission back in February. Since then, a very exhaustive soil study has been conducted, and we have identified 3 areas for potential shared drain fields. Now, there are 3 sewer options for all of these lots. The first is a traditional gravity sewer system. Should that not work, then there will be an engineered system where there's a series of, you can remove soil, add filters to the drain field. It's a different system, but it's also approved by DHEC. The third system is the shared drain fields. We do not want to use the shared drain fields at all. However, with the property and the topography of everything sloping off the existing streets, and also with the number of existing public streets, it is a challenge not to cross the right-of-way should we need to cross it for a shared system. Now, the lines, should they be installed, will run actually parallel with the right-of-way in the lots. It'll just cross at a certain point. The reason why this is not a variance, this is basically what we would have to do if this condition was not imposed last year, is apply for an encroachment permit from the engineering department to cross over. And it's a little misleading of saying that the county would be responsible. The county would not be responsible for any of these improvements. There would be as a result of the homeowners association, and as a part of that encroachment permit, that gives the HOA the right to go in and make any repairs if necessary. So it's not a variance, and it's actually very common in a lot of other developments as to where if you have private streets that connect to public streets and crossings, it's a very simple encroachment permit process. Now, we have gone through and we've identified these areas and are very comfortable with these areas, but again, the shared drain fields are the last option to be used. And just want to make that clear, but also of having this development and the hydric soils due to being so close to the lake, we want to have the opportunity to utilize a shared septic system or drainage system should it arise. And what will happen, we'll find that out when each individual lot goes through its septic approval. But from there again, we do not want to utilize any of this land, and hopefully that it will be it'll just continue to be open space and be converted to tree safe as part of one of the conditions that was imposed by the Planning Commission.
Any further questions?
Have you identified a specific number of lots that?
What we have done, we have actually listed all of the lots this time around instead of the first time of selecting certain lots, to at least give them the opportunity instead of picking certain areas out. And we work diligently with staff in finding just the crossings that are needed as to where we can run the infrastructure, the pipes themselves on the private lots themselves, and then it will just be a crossing. These pipes will not be running parallel inside the public rights of way. They'll be in the lots running parallel and just cross where needed, because there are almost 90 existing lots that are on this peninsula. So it creates some issues of should there be one lot that is bordered by two lots that are not part of this assemblage. It's very challenging for that should it not sewer. And with the condition, we couldn't even cross the street to connect to a line that could provide sewer for this, for that particular property. And we do have a couple scenarios where we do have that. So it's not a variance. We're just requesting that this be rescinded. As a part of that, as part of the soil study and grouping the proposed areas together, the lots have been reduced by 6. We are proposing the same amount of tree save that we did last year. And that is the reason for the primary reduction in the lots. We at least wanted to come with you to say, yes, we understand, of this request of rescinding this, we'll give the tree save that was approved prior. But it's just the crossing, and I've talked to staff and they said it's just basically an encroachment process. The same that for any of these lots, when they do connect to the street with their driveway, the builder would have to get an encroachment permit to connect that driveway to the county street. So at least this will give, the county will not be on will not be responsible for any of the maintenance of these facilities should they be built. It's basically all, and it'll be a 20-foot easement with about a 4-foot pipe that'll run and cross the streets where needed. And we have identified those on the plat as well.
Thank you. Any further questions?
So maybe I'm missing something, and I apologize. This is not my area of expertise, so I need you to educate me. But at some point where the pipes cross the street, if something happens underneath the street where there's a burst underneath the street, then who would be responsible for it?
It will be the homeowners association.
homeowner-
They will be responsible for that facility. Now, it will be encased. Any pipe that does cross a street, it will be encased and protected.
Okay.
Due to, the travel over top of the street. So it's just not gonna be the sewer, the 4-inch line that runs across the street.
Okay.
So it will be protected.
So my last question, just a follow-up. So a homeowner or the homeowners association, what ultimately means the homeowner, because they're the ones who fund the HOA, will be responsible for digging up the street and making any of the repairs that
Well,
may be
no,
on
they
the
will have to
street?
get someone who can, who does that type of repair work. So
no,
they will have
I'm-
to contract someone out to make those repairs and make sure that it meets county code requirements of putting the street back.
I mean financially responsible.
Yes.
I know not physically doing the
Right,
work.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
So quick question, in terms of number of homes being built, there is not a particular builder, is that correct?
No, Premier Land is the developer,
So-
and they do sell these lots.
To individual homeowners that are then responsible for building on
Yes,
their,
but there will be an overriding homeowners association as part of the overall development.
Sure.
For maintenance of the tree save areas, we do have an active amenity, so they will be responsible for the active amenity. The other open space, should these shared systems not be built, so they will be required to, maintain those areas as well.
so what happens when, is there a time frame for building once you've purchased a lot?
It'll be done and it'll be phased. The development will be phased. So we'll go through the engineering process, and then from there, the final plat. We have to get all the permits approved by DHEC.
Of
So
course.
that will all have to be in place before the lots are sold.
I get that. I guess my question is, if you have lots that even if sold, so then those owners are paying their HOA dues conceivably before their home is built to,
The developer will own the property and act as the homeowners association until a certain number of lots have been sold throughout the entire development. And then they transfer, here, the property owners, now you are the homeowners association, but the developer will remain as the developer and the HOA for a period of time until, it's typically maybe when 75% of the lots are sold.
I think it's too bad Jack isn't here because he was a big part of this. He definitely had an issue with homeowners associations being in charge of anything.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna bring up is I think the issue that was discussed last year was a homeowners association being in charge of basically a utility. And, I think the concern was that an HOA is not an appropriate entity to be in charge of a utility.
And ensuring they keep enough funds on hand for any.
Well, actually, I actually can speak to that because as part of the community system, funds have to be put into an escrow account for any future maintenance. So that's from DHEC. So if they were to do a community system, there would be money at day one sitting there in case of repairs or
Issues.
anything. But then my issue is that the HOA then becomes, almost like a de facto utility system in charging fees to recoup money if they have to.
I'm sorry, so can I ask one more question just so that I can boil this down? Basically, last year, we put these requirements on it so that this could be passed, correct?
So it could be, I'm sorry, I
So
didn't hear.
that the plat could be approved.
Correct.
And now you're coming back and just asking us to take off the
Well,
requirements.
the
Is that
one thing-
basically what's happening?
Well, what happened, the condition, when the board came back, there was not an opportunity to discuss the conditions with us. And we accepted those, and now there is a way where we can design this. It is not a preferred method, We can move these lines to the rear of some lots, and we can have the lines, but again, from a maintenance standpoint, that becomes very problematic should there be any type of issue. Now, this system will be designed the same as any force main sewer system. And I mean, I've heard a lot about failure, of these systems failing. I mean, the likelihood of that, it will be designed accordingly and engineered appropriately with the correct materials to be used. So that is, hopefully it would never happen. It's the same as any type of sewer system.
Unfortunately, we've had quite a few of the public sewer systems have issues in the Lake Wiley, both sides of the lake.
And,
So,
I think there's a history of whether it's private utility systems or, individual homeowners associations having their own system where they were, they failed at one point or another in time.
do we have any further questions of the applicant?
I have a question. I don't know, maybe staff could answer this, but can someone speak to, like, as he was saying, the encroachment permitting, what stipulations there are for that process? And, does it say and give those stipulations that say that the county's not responsible for any failures?
This is more an engineering question, but these are their own private utility systems, so we would not be responsible for them. So,
Okay,
yeah,
so
that's just,
there's no way the county would be
there's no way the
responsible.
county would be responsible for this whatsoever. These are private utility systems, so no, we would not be responsible. But they would just come to us for the encroachment part. That would be it.
Okay.
And that'll be part of the construction drawing phase of knowing where the crossings will be to have the final count. And then each one has their own agreement that will be the same in nature, just location will be different.
Let me just ask one more question. Maybe I missed it. So what staff is recommending is what's on the screen. Is this the same that this board approved the last time, or is this something different than what they approved? So what's on the screen, is that what you're asking for?
The second item is new. I don't see how we can be penalized by putting any type of public or private sewer system throughout the property, as long as we are maintaining the tree save that we are providing on the preliminary plat, which is exceeding the minimum amount. We just can't run these things through the streets. So there are places we have to cross in certain locations, and it'll be a 20-foot wide easement, and that's why some of the lots were taken out, due to we needed to at least come back to you with the amount of tree save that was proposed initially.
Item 1 is the stipulation that was
Is the
put on the
condition.
previous approval. And so they're coming back asking us to remove that stipulation, and then staff is recommending not only leaving it, but then adding the second one.
Okay.
Any further questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that it be approved with the staff recommendation conditions.
Okay, do we have a second?
A second.
Any further discussion? Okay, so there's no further discussion. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Item 5, rezoning.
You're okay.
Okay, so on to the rezoning cases. It's actually just one tonight. This is case 2104. Applicant is Reed Smith. The property is on Beckler Road, does not have an address, and tax number is 613-0000-025. So the request is to rezone from UD to RUD1 to permit the construction of a single-family home. This is a vicinity map. This property, it's vacant near I-77 at Beckler Road. As you can see, it's a wooded lot. Some large lot, single family around the area. Environmental, there's some wetlands on the back of the property, but that won't be impacted by the development. As far as the zoning goes, you have a little bit of UD in the area, but most of it is RUD1, so this is consistent with the area. Land use plan is rural residential, so that's consistent. So we're recommending approval of the request. Feature land use is rural residential, which is rural character, low density residential uses, which is what this will be. And the rezoning request is supportive of the rural residential future land use designation. Pretty straightforward. Any questions?
So this is one that easily could have been captured when we were rezoning all the UD properties.
We
They
could
just
have, but
didn't,
for one reason or another,
they just
come
didn't
forward.
participate at that time?
Yep.
Okay. For history, for the newer members, you weren't here when we did that. Property that's zoned UD used to allow residential, and they took the residential element out of the UD zoning. So they went through a whole project through the whole county, trying to capture the people who were residential, and now they're not compliant with the zoning. For some reason, this one just didn't,
Slip through the cracks.
yeah, he
a
slipped
number
through
of
the
people
cracks,
didn't
so, didn't
respond,
reply.
and so now they
Right,
have to
so
come
now they
back
have to come
individually.
back and do it individually.
And if they.
And pay for it,
Yeah,
which
and I
they
was gonna
didn't have
say
to
is
before.
If they had done it during the process that the county was initiating, the county was waiving the fee and just doing the rezoning and now they have to pay for it, so by not responding, they actually cost themselves money.
Do we have any questions of staff? No questions. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a question? Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Motion to approve? You motion to
I
approve?
made the motion.
Sorry, I can't get these straight mask.
I did
fine.
the second.
Second, Greg?
I'll raise my hand.
Okay, and then
Let's see
the
it, thank you.
comp plan update.
No, text amendment first.
Text amendment.
4.6. You go back one more, Jamie, it's actually text amendment first, before we get to the comp plan update. That's all right. This is the text amendment for the Lake Wiley overlay for temporary prohibition of new development. As you can recall, we did a temporary stopping of development or certain items of development in Lake Wiley in 2019. Originally, it was to prohibit rezoning applications, prohibit apartments, condos, and townhomes, and to limit the new lot size from 1 acre. That is set to expire March 31st of this year. So what we're doing here is we're coming back with an amendment to be able to extend one of those 3 items until we can actually adopt the recode. So we're going to make an amendment to be able to continue on with the prohibition of apartments, condominiums, and townhomes until December 31st, 2021. The original stop was to be able to get the small area plan completed, which we did that already, but there's a provision to be able to direct apartments to certain locations, and the recode is looking at doing some changes to our zoning districts to be able to help us implement that countywide in the Lake Wiley. So we want to go ahead and extend that one portion of the prohibition for a little bit longer to get recode adopted. Look for any questions you might have.
If there are no questions, do we have a motion?
Motion
Motion to approve?
to approve.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, thank you. And now we're on to the comp plan.
right, so we are working on the economic development element tonight. There we go. So several influencers came out of the comp plan. So the demographic and employment trends, major industries and employers, regional and county economic trends, York County's competitive advantages, and the office, retail, and industrial market trends. So you can imagine those have changed a good bit since the plan was originally approved. So we're currently working with economic development. They are updating their strategic plan, so that's going to inform a lot of these changes. So that plan is not complete right now. So a lot of this will be changing as that plan is completed. So some recent or emerging issues. So state property tax laws, how they have changed over time and have affected the competitiveness of the area. COVID-19, of course, has affected the demand of office and retail space. Opportunity zones, that legislation passed since the adoption of the plan. Workplace preferences for more amenities and outdoor spaces, that's increasingly important. And a renewed interest in agritourism in York County. So we're gonna do like we have been and start with one goal at a time. So we'll start with goal ED1, which is to encourage jobs and capital investment throughout the county in a balanced manner. So questions or comments on any of goal ED1's strategies? Should be outlined in your packet.
It's not necessarily on goal ED1, but in the, you're talking about how COVID is expecting the demand for, impacting the demand for office space. Are you looking at that as just a very short-term thing, or are you approaching that as a longer-term issue, since you put that as one of the kind of driving factors?
Well, it's something for us to consider. At this point, I'm not sure if this is going to be a short-term or a long-term change. It's hard to say.
Okay, I was concerned if you're making it a long-term, because we don't know if people are going to go back to the office or if they're going to love working from home. So I was hoping that you were, kind of like, well, this is a long-term change, and
No, just something to keep in mind.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. If nothing on ED1, anything on goal ED2, maximize York County's regional competitive market position. All right. Goal ED3, retain and enhance existing businesses. Okay then. Goal ED4, create a focus on quality of life.
From a monetary standpoint, From a monetary standpoint, what does the county do in that regard in terms of like supporting the regional tourism? Do you know?
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Sorry about that. From a monetary standpoint, for the regional tourism and things like that, where does the county stand? Do you know? I mean,
I think that's a question for another agency, I believe.
Yeah, but we do collect H tax money and accommodations money that gets put back into the community as well. But this is another one where there's a lot of partners for this one. For the tourism, they have a very active program.
Okay.
But I think the H tax money and the accommodations tax money to go back into those programs to help support them.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. Anything else on ED4? Okay. Goal ED5, preserve and strengthen agricultural sector jobs and production.
I just got one, I guess, I don't know what you call it, a comment or, probably gonna be a story when it's done, but the ag tourism, I know that's been discussed a lot over the past few years, and, you know, one of the things we did a few years ago was create the Rural Event Center, and, you know, at the time, that seemed like that was great, everybody loved it, and then all of a sudden, the first people wanted to go in and start building them, and then they found out, like, oh, you gotta do A through Z, and everybody's eyes were like, well, I just wanna put up a barn. And, you know, and I know I'm working with one that's working to get in compliance. I know there's others that are out of compliance, in dispute with, you know, the county and all, and I just want to see, like, you know, if they're going to promote that kind of tourism and that kind of, and that sector, that, you know, this distinction is clear that, hey, you know, it's not just, you know, you go get a special exemption and then you can build your barn. You know, this is what you have to do after you build the barn, and here's, you know, there's a lengthy number of steps, and I think everybody that I've talked to did not know the process after they got the special exception. They, you know, they were happy to come in here and have their one meeting, and they thought they were done, and they realized they were far from done. And you know, I just want to make sure the expectations are met. You know, if they have to do, what they have to do, but that it's communicated to them.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot to be able to communicate with that. I think sometimes, like, you know, we're dealing with potential just homeowners they don't really understand the whole development process, and so we might be getting the head nodding, but it's not really coming in there. So we do our best to be able to work with folks to be able to make these projects work. There has been some changes as we move along, because it was a new ordinance for us, and many throughout the county or throughout the state. And so we have modified a few things. We've recognized we need to make a little bit of changes here to make it less commercial, more ag favorite. There's been some legislation too in terms of, you know, some things have changed to be able to make it easier for folks to be able to do that. And we've adopted those changes. I'm trying to work with them. You know, it is difficult sometimes because their expectation is just to go ahead and they went to a wedding in a barn and it was great. Why can't I just do that? Well, maybe that wasn't quite done.
Maybe it wasn't even a legal facility. Which is the truth. And
so
a number of them
compete with that assumption that everything else is being done there properly, so therefore, you know, that makes it harder.
Yeah.
But yeah, we could always do better, and we can work to make some sort of a, you know, brochure, handout, checklist, kinds of things.
And I agree with the head nodding. Yes, they will sit there with you and nod to yes to everything, and then later on when we talk about it, they don't remember it.
Exactly. And that's not what they do, so I understand that, and that's okay. We'll help them through.
Okay, anything else on agritourism? Sounds like we're done.
Excellent, thank you. Do we have any questions or comments on the tracking sheet? Okay, we'll accept that as information. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor? Thank you.
Ooh.